Actually, Buffy is the reason that I started. I'd always written, but it's the reason that I started writing novels. Because when I was working on Buffy, Christopher Golden, I don't know if you guys have read any of his Buffy books or any of his solo books, he approached me about writing a Willow Tarot comic for Dark Horse. So we wrote this series of Willow Tarot comics, and then because of that, we were approached by the BBC to create an animated show for them, and it's called The Ghost of Albion. And then Random House asked us to novelize that universe, and so without Buffy and Christopher Golden and Joss Whedon, I would not be writing Death's Daughter.
Okay.
So that is the genesis.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go from comic writing to novel writing and have challenges with the differences?
Well, comic book writing is much more like writing a screenplay. It's actually like writing a screenplay and then coming up with the storyboards for a screenplay. Whereas novels, it's all words all the time. It's a little daunting because with comic book stuff, you're writing dialogue and you're talking about action and what the panel should look like. And I really enjoy writing comic books. It's a lot of fun. This was frightening because when I was writing the Ghost books with Chris, we would split up the writing duties, and so he would like write the first 2 chapters, and I'd write the 3rd and the 4th, and we'd go back and forth. And it made it a lot easier because if you were stumped on a plot problem or a character development question, you could just be like, Chris, help! With this, there was no one to go, Amber, help! Because it was just me. Mm-hmm.
Do you have another book in the works following this one, or?
Yeah, it's actually a trilogy.
Okay.
I originally wanted to write one big book, and when my editor bought the book, she was like, I really feel like there's a lot of stuff. Why don't you break it into 3 books? And I was like, 3 books? 3 books? That's a lot of books. That's like, what's 9 times 270,000 words? Oh my God. But she was insistent, and she was right. There was a lot of story to tell. This character wanted a trilogy. So I decided that what I would do to make it appealing to me is I would have it be my homage to Dante's Divine Comedy. So the first book takes place in hell, the second one in purgatory, and the third in heaven.
So when is the next one coming out?
Hopefully it'll be out March, April of 2010. 2010.
Looking forward to it.
Oh, thank you. Any other questions? Mm-hmm.
Were there any specific stories that you looked to when you were for inspiration when you were writing Death's Daughter?
You mean as far as like other authors that I was reading that sort of inspired the book? Mm-hmm. Definitely American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I don't know if you guys have read that book yet, but he's an incredible writer, and that book really opened the door to mythology in fiction for me, because you read so much mythological stuff and you're like, well, it feels out of date when you have like ancient Greek gods coming in, it seems silly. But he really found a way to update the mythological characters and bring them into the contemporary world. And I was like, well, if he can do it, then I can do it. What else? I like to say that this book is a cross between like The Devil Wears Prada with all the fashion stuff and then sort of American Gods. It's not a typical urban fantasy. There's no vampires, there's no werewolves. She's a very flawed character. She makes a lot of mistakes. Usually in those books, the girl's like, I know what my goal is, we must save the world, and they just go right for it. This girl's like, I don't want to save the world. Why do I want to save the world? I feel like she has more in common with Buffy than any other character, because Buffy dealt with that back and forth between, I want to be a normal girl, yet I am the slayer. I want to be a normal girl, I don't want to kiss a guy and him become, or have sex with a guy and him become all of a sudden a bad guy. Like, I just want to be a normal girl. So I owe a lot to Joss and to Buffy. Anybody else? Mm-hmm.
When you were on Buffy, what would you say was your favorite episode to do?
Oh, the musical. What's more I love that. That's my favorite. I was literally like, can we do every episode of the musical? No. Because it took us literally, when we would do an episode, it would take 8 days. When we did the musical, it was 8 days plus like 20 more. Because every time you'd be working, they'd call you and they'd be like, oh, can you put the dress back on? We need to get a couple of shots of you guys dancing around again. We got to add a couple of things. It just went on and on and on. I was like, oh, more dress. Go away, corset. I never want to see you again. It was my fault, too, because I was like, oh, it's so pretty. I want to wear that. But it was tight. Thank God I wasn't actually singing. I was lip-syncing to what I'd already recorded, because if I'd been like trying to sing in front of me, it wouldn't have happened.
Were you and
Anthony Stewart hits seen in the better singers?
I think Tony's an incredible singer. I mean, I did a thing for VH1 with him. Basically, it was like an homage to Rocky Horror, and they had all these different people. You know, Eric McCormick was doing it, and Tony, and Tia Carrera was supposed to do it, and at the last minute she dropped out, and they're like, Tia Carrera, who's like Tia Carrera? Let's go with Paul. Yeah, let's get everybody. What? I am not. It's Tia Carrera and me. Those two names come up together in conversation a lot. So I had seen Tony like bring his own kit. Like he has his own like Dr. Frankenfurter outfit. Like he comes prepared. He actually took the role over from Tim Curry in the UK. And did it when, right when it had started. So he's been doing it forever. But like I was just in awe of him. I was like, he's amazing. So when they were like, if we want to do the music, we want to do a duet with Tony. I was like, please. But I think both of us, we're both trained singers. I grew up doing musical theater and stuff, and I love singing. And I have to say, I think I got the prettiest song. So I think that made it much easier for me to do it because the song's so beautiful.